Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inia Desnia show. Happy New Year. I'm very excited to be here this afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. I'm very excited to be here and wishing everybody a great 2024. I hope all of you had a great time, resting and just enjoying the holiday season. And we're really happy that we're in a new year. This is my first um, presentation or show. I'm used to giving presentations, so forgive me for 2024. I am very excited to be here. Again, always starting by saying thank you so much for everyone that has watched, that has commented, that has complimented, all those good stuff. So I want to say thank you. I'm looking forward to a great 2024. My goal here is to, get more people to be live, to attend live, and also, not only people that have questions for their businesses, but just like last year, we had a couple of people that were here and then they spoke of, things that were, or topics that were very helpful to small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, which is like small and medium-sized businesses. So it was a very great year. And so just moving on and thriving. And of course, it's the goal of this platform to share information to help SMEs do well, to thrive, just not to survive, but to thrive. So again, thank you for being here. Of course, I know you have so many things to do today, but I'm happy that you're able to join me. Right. And of course, I always appreciate constructive feedback, how we can get better, or topics that you actually want to hear on this platform, anything that you have issues with. And, but of course, remember, this platform is for informative and educative purposes only. You still have to see a professional. I'm one of them. You can actually come over if you have any question. Just go to um, my website, or then it will connect you to my firm, where we'll set up an appointment and then we can actually meet. But if you want to appear on this program, please go ahead and do that. All right, so excited. Let's get started. Today I have another interesting topic, and my topic today is remote staff, right, is great for your small business, right? Remote staff is great for your small business. So when you say remote staff, right, what are we talking about? We're talking about or virtual workers, people that do not work um, in your office. They might actually work in your geographical location, but they're just not coming to the office. They might not even work in your geographical location. But generally, I'm just talking about staff that I'm just working out of the office, right? Out of the brick and mortar office, right? And so I say that, you know, remote staff that are really good, great for your business, small business. And why do I say that? All right, I'm going to give you some of the advantages, but I'm also going to talk about these disadvantages. But I'm going to go a step further to say, okay, you know what? These are the disadvantages, right? How do you mitigate those issues or those problems that would fall under those disadvantages? Okay, so let's look at the good stuff. Why is it so good? Why is it great for your business, small business? Okay, one of the great things for in hiring a remote staff is it helps, you can attract, it helps to broaden your horizon when you want to attract um, talent, right? It depends on who you're looking for, right? But you can attract talent from different states, different locations, different cities, even within the same state. So it actually expands your horizon and allows you to attract more talent, right? Beyond just your geographical location. All right. Of course, it just depends on what the small business does, right? Of course, it depends. Um, but even if you cannot, you cannot have every aspect of your small business to be like every staff to be a remote worker, those areas where you can make that person or that position a remote staff position, I would say that go for it, right? But of course, we're going to talk about the cons, and I'm going to say, as I said, some mitigating factors to help, take care of those. So the first, as I said, it attracts more talent, all right? Attracts more talent. Why do I say attracts more talent? Let's just expand on that, right? First of all, when you have remote workers, right? People enjoy that flexibility. Now, I mean, if somebody has to come to a brick and mortar office, usually the person has to take some kind of form of transportation. And so you tell someone that that's fine, you can work from home, do the same thing and get the same pay. Remember, even though remember, we're talking about staff, we're not talking about independent contractors now. Because look at that, your staff, your staff comes to the office, you don't pay their, you don't, I mean, you usually don't pay their transport, right? But you pay them for coming to work, you pay them for working. All right. So imagine them being able to do the same thing, right? But you're there removing that remote position allows them to remove that cost of transport, right? So that flexibility of being able to work anywhere and everywhere, but again, it depends. I know that some businesses do not allow their staff to work. Maybe if they travel or if they're even though they're remote, it depends on the business you handle or the business what you do, what your small business is all about, right? So I would say the very great advantage, because we talked about attracting more talent. People would like to apply for jobs that give them the flexibility of working anywhere. All right. And so that's a great thing. And then another thing, there's another reason why, when I say it attracts more talent, because you have a wide platform of where and who you're going to hire, right? Because of some people just say, what, I want to work from home for a particular reason, right? And they work from home, and but they have the talent. They don't want to go out, but they have that talent. So it attracts more talent. Another reason why people will say, what, I want to go for your job is that, the work-life balance. I talked about the commute, right? Somebody can wake up in the morning and say, what, I'm just going to walk into my office, in my room or in my office space and just go ahead and work. All right. So that's something that is awesome. It's really allows people to say, what, I want a job like that. And that flexibility is actually a plus. And so it not only attracts more talent, right? It also helps in what? Staff retention. Turnover issues are likely to reduce, because a lot of times when people are happy with, you know, their work process, as working remotely, there's a lot of flexibility. So, I mean, a lot of times they don't want to leave that job unless, of course, there are other factors. But that flexibility is a plus. So that's one of the things that is really advantageous for people that actually want to work from home, right? So that's the flexibility. Another thing that is a plus is that the issue of, or the advantage of, the easier to grow. Now, how does that work? If you have remote staff, right, it's easier to grow, because you don't need really a big office space to actually have more staff. That's beautiful. That's amazing, right? You don't really need a large office space to have more staff. So it's easier to grow, right? When you have remote staff, um, you know, so that actually allows you to grow without saying that these people we have to have an office space that can accommodate so number of people. So it's easier to grow. And so that is the advantage of having a remote staff, right? Another great thing, just tying it a bit too easier to grow. I mean, you don't have to, it reduces, you don't have to buy, as I said, have a large office space. If you have all or certain of your staff, because you might say, you know what, these particular staff, this particular position is not remote, and there are jobs like that in your business. There might be some positions that are not remote. They have to be on ground, and that's fine. But if there are some positions that you can allow those jobs to be remote, you should think of that. Because one thing is that if you have an office space where, for example, maybe the bookkeeper doesn't have to be in the office, or maybe someone that's in charge of advertising, or somebody that's in charge of advertising, marketing, things like that. There are other processes. It just depends on what your office is all about. So when you look at that and you say, okay, you know what, I don't need this large office space. I know about 3 people or 2 people need to be in the office because of what they do. But the others, I can actually allow them to work remotely. When I do that, I just don't have to have a large office space. And what does that mean? When you don't have a large office space, what does it mean? It reduces the cost of expenses. So your operating expenses really go down. All right, it really reduces. So that's an advantage. All right. Now, um, and I wanted to also add, I believe I mentioned it in one of my shows, but just to reiterate, when people talk about, oh, there's the cost of turnover, you have to understand that when it talks about the cost of turnover, we look at what so many costs associated with that turnover. Staff that say, you know what, I don't want to stay. I prefer companies that are like ours or like yours, and they offer this position remotely. So I mean, when you talk about someone leaving your job, the staff turnover, we talk about certain costs, because you have to start looking for another staff, and that's time. And time is money. You have to train the new staff, no matter how good a staff is, or a new staff. When they come in, they have to understand your process. You have to, do the background checks and do the verification and all those stuff. So very important, right? So those are the things that are associated with staff turnover. And so looking at all that is very important for us to note the beauty, all right, the great advantage of remote staff. So, but of course, I'm going to talk about the disadvantages or the cons, right? That's the pros and the cons. So some of the things that you have to look out for when it comes to remote staffing, right, is state regulations. There's so many issues when if you're like, let's say if you're in the same state with your staff, right, even though they are not located in your geographical location, maybe they're in the same state but they're 5 hours away, because there are some states that are that big. Then if that's the case, all right, if that's the case, you're fine, because the state regulations are the same, because you have your corporate office or your business office. Yes, your corporate office is where you register your business, right? Even as an LLC, you register your business in an office. So that's okay. That's fine. But if you have remote workers that are out of state, right? That's becomes more complicated. Now, I'm not saying that you should not hire remote workers that are out of state. No, I didn't say that. But those are one of the cons, that the issues that, oh, do you understand the tax implication? What is the tax? Oh, is it income tax? What about payroll tax? On all those taxes that you have to understand how that works. Is the company registered in that state? How does that work? All right. When it comes to the state that your remote staff works in. Now, I talked about like that. I said at the beginning, when I talk about the cons, I'll say, how do you mitigate? How do you make sure that this really does not affect your business, really? And one of the things you can do is making sure you keep up to date, right, with your staff's move, right? If you have to let everybody know continuously that if anybody moves to a different state, right? Um, if anybody moves to a different state, the person must inform your company. I always say that it's important for you to work with professionals, because in this case, you would need a professional that understands how the tax law works, because you don't want to have penalties and issues and interest and all kinds of problems with payment of, because, right, your company did not follow the regulations, right? may not follow the right regulations. So it's very important for you to make sure that you're on top of all that, right? The next one is, the next disadvantage is bonding, right? Bonding meaning that, you know, most times when people work remotely, how do they connect with other staff, right? How does that work? How do they connect with other staff? All right. Now, that might be an issue that can be a disadvantage, but there are ways you can actually make that work. Now, I know that some companies that say, you know what, if maybe a couple of people are located in a geographical location, they can say, okay, they can meet up once a month, or some people do it once a week. It depends. But even if you don't do that, there are some things you can do even online. You have, I mean, during COVID, I remember there were a lot of virtual events. Virtual people come together, do a watch party, they come together like a movie watch party. It could be anything, game party within you could say every Friday, maybe during lunchtime, people can come together and do a virtual, get, virtual game, something to have that kind of relationship within the office. So yes, there are, yeah, bonding issues that, oh, how do you make people at least have that interaction? I know some people will say, you know what, I still want to go to the office because of that. They just don't want to just be still sitting down in front of a computer. But when you have this bonding games, networking events, it's something that will actually promote engagement. A lot of people have talked about, being isolated when it comes to virtual work. But if you have, I mean, and again, I mean, you see some of those articles and people say, oh yes, there are some things that they prefer, if they could bond. Yeah, you can actually do some things like virtual games, as I said, and come up with ideas. There's a lot of ideas out there. I was just blown away when I heard about the different um, um, events on Zoom. I mean, people brought, birthday parties they created on Zoom. It was just, it was just amazing. It was really innovative, and I really think that was really a great thing, very good thing, because and then it brought people together. So I think that really that's something that you could actually put in place to avoid that, you know, issues of, oh, how do you how do people, get motivated just to just have that kind of social connection. Okay. Another issue that people might find, when you have remote workers or the businesses might have an issue is the connectivity, technological connectivity. They have these technical issues in connecting. I know some offices, there's something that they do. I think they pay a percentage of the bill. And think of it, you might say, oh, wouldn't that add up? Well, a percentage of a monthly um, um, internet bill times 12 months for how many workers? I mean, small business, usually they don't have so many, but even if it's a percentage, I guarantee you that when you add the cost of having a large real estate, of brick and mortar office space, a large office space, if you calculate that cost compared to maybe a percentage of an internet bill for your staff that are remote, I would say that it's going to be cheaper, right? Because some staff might not be able to afford that high level connectivity, so that might be something that you have to, first, there could be two ways to go about this. Before you hire any remote worker, you have to put that as a condition that they have to have, very good connectivity. That's the way to go. Or you might say you can compensate them to a certain percentage. It just depends on how your policy, how you want to put it in place. But anyone that actually is a remote worker is supposed to have a very good connection. And I would even go for that. If the person has already been working with your company, I understand that, but maybe, the percentage you might want to, pay. But I'm just calculating this. I said on your own side, yes, is a plus, because of course you don't have to have a big, large office space. But in the case of this remote worker, if this remote worker was paying for gas or coming to work with transport, the person will pay more money than just having a higher speed internet. So you have to look at how you want to go about that when it comes to the technology connectivity issue. So you have to really make sure that that is well taken care of. Okay. And another issue that that might happen, because remember the goal is saying, the goal is to make sure that even if you're going to the remote staff flat path, which is advantageous as we see, you also make sure that when you have these disadvantages or the cons, they are well taken care of. All right. The next one is cybersecurity. We hear hacking left, right, and center, things like that. I know that a lot of offices now have a VPN or a kind of security way of just getting into the system. And so um, that is something you should look into. It's very important that everybody's information is well protected. This is whether it's a remote worker, everywhere anybody goes, because even if one is not a remote worker, as a business owner, you travel, you go places. So you want to make sure that your clients or your customers' information is well protected. So very important for you to use that, right? And making sure that get maybe a professional in technology, right? You that can help you with that is very important, so that um, no matter where your staff works, right? They are fine, right? Everything is fine on their end, right? No matter where your staff works, right? So when I say everything is fine, everything is secured. All right. So as much as possible, because people are hacking and hacking and hacking. And then another thing you could do is that two-step verification. There are ways to go about it, um, just to make sure that your staff, your data is protected, right? So you see, I'm giving you the cons, but there are ways around it. There are ways around this disadvantage of the cons, right? Now, another issue that many small businesses have, or many businesses, is that they want to know, how do you track performance? How do you track performance of a remote worker? How do you do that, right? Now, um, I always tell um, business owners that they should they should, as much as possible, um, have weekly meetings, and ask and provide, deadlines and goals and expectations, weekly meetings, monthly meetings, right? Sometimes, people have more than that. It depends on what your business does, but it's very important for you to let your business, your staff know what your business is about, of course, about what is required of them, right? So many small businesses they don't have that 3 levels or 2 levels of, they don't have a lot of levels when it comes to hierarchy, right? When it comes to, um, you know, um, reporting, some of the many small businesses don't go from a manager and all those, supervisor. They don't, many of them, but some do. So if you have, if you're not, have that hierarchy, you might think of, okay, all your staff, when you meet with them, right? You have to tell them, have to have time to make sure weekly meeting. Now, if you have to have a supervisor in place, for the supervisor to monitor the business, the business, when I said, the work of the remote worker, please go ahead and do that, right? But usually there should be goals, there should be expectations, there should be milestones reached, right? So for example, if you're saying, okay, this is what's required of somebody, or a team member by maybe by Thursday. And we want that, and then of course, if the person has any issues or they want any clarity, they can ask you, right? So it's very important for um, the the owner of the business, you as a small business owner, as an SME, to actually really set those goals. This is a new year, and if you have not set your goals already, most large organizations, large business, large corporations, everything for Q1 was set forth. They've set in place by before Q4, right? Q4 of the last year. Now, many small businesses take it for granted and they're more laid back. And I mean, I'm not saying that, that most small business should be like corporations, but if you could be like that, that wouldn't be a bad idea. It's good to plan for the year. Now, if you said, you know what, I want to wait till January, but you have some things in mind, hopefully you had a structure that you wanted to put in place for your goals, and just thought about it in December, you're writing that down this year in 2024. And your staff must know what you are going, where you're going, what you're going to do, whether in growth, in increase, yeah, in growth, in brand awareness, whatever your goals are, for people to know you in this 2024, is very important for them to know about that, so that you can really check it. So even though we say con is tracking performance, yes, that might be an issue, but if you put milestones in place, expectations, what you expect from them, how you measure performance, so I would say it might be a little bit more tedious for the small business owner, right? But if you have people that you can rely on, what this means is that um, it doesn't have to be that tedious, right? You want to make sure that anyone working from home is actually doing what is expected. All right. So these are some of the great things that remote workers or remote staff can bring to your small business. Everybody wants to look for ways to reduce costs. When you reduce costs, what happens? Your profit margin increases. When you reduce or eliminate staff turnover, what happens? Your profit margin increases, right? When you have low operating costs, when it comes to having large offices, and not having people actually use those offices, right? So you reduce your lease expense, you reduce some things, your rent expense, lease, or your even it just depends on when it comes to brick and mortar store. I know that some companies that are actually 100% online now. So again, it just depends on the structure of your company, or really, I would say not really structure. It really depends on what your business does, because no matter the structure, you can actually make it work when it comes to remote workers, right? But or remote staff. But of course, right? See what works for you, right? Always for informative and educative purposes, right? But if you haven't tapped into this, I really think that this is a way that you can actually look into, right? Of course, see if this works for your business. So these are some of the great things that can happen when you actually hire remote staff. And of course, there are cons, or would I say disadvantages, but we're mitigating that, making sure that even though there are disadvantages, taking care of that, making it work. All right. Awesome. Okay, let's look at some of the questions that I have today. All right. So these are some of the questions. All right. Let's see what I can cover. All right. Okay. The first question is, I'm having issues with managing the cash inflow for my business. Okay. Do I reinvest it into the business, or can I spend it? Okay, this is a very interesting question, because this person is not saying that is not complaining that I don't have cash. So it means that cash inflow, meaning that the person getting paid for their business, and kudos, is getting paid for their business, and for the business, for the either the commodity or the services, and they're really getting paid. So it's not that they're lacking capital, but they're asking here if is it issue should they reinvest it or can they spend? That means can maybe say maybe spending on themselves. I will say my response to this is that it just depends, right? Now the cash inflow now I was talking to one of my clients not too long ago, and um they were just, I mean, they've just got into this area of their business. They just opened their business. They've been doing this before, but they opened their business not too long ago, even in something that they have been doing for some time. But they realized that during the holiday season, there was the revenue, there was actually a decline in sales, but they made good money during the year. So there was a decline in sales. So because of this decline in sales, it was really tight for them in towards the end of the year. So when I say it depends, right? I would say, check your business and see is revenue consistent throughout the year? Is it just like, oh, a cash influx, or just, I mean, it happens at a particular point in time. So if revenue is is if it's something that happens all the time, and um are you also another question I would ask is, are you also in into maybe should I say are you into manufacturing? Are you a service oriented company? Very important for you to know that. So I mean, if you're manufacturing, are you able to cover the raw materials, right? So very various questions. And so I would say speak to a professional, because this answer is that it depends. It just depends. It depends on what you're looking at when it comes to various moving parts, right? I mentioned service industry. I mentioned manufacturing. I also mentioned, it could be construction. What kind of industry? And then also looking into, how does cash, you're having influx, a lot of cash right now. Is it that you've been in business for some time? Is it the influx that is throughout the year, or what's happening, right? But it's a good thing when you say cash, there's a lot of cash coming in. When I say, I believe cash would mean checks or cash, whatever. It's revenue. I would say revenue. That's what you're saying, and which is very, very good. Revenue is coming in, payments are being made. But when you ask the question, or when the question is being asked here, and this would apply to everybody too, because or anyone that has this same issue, um, whether you invest it into the business or can you spend it, right? And of course, there are different tax implications. See what works, or what's the tax implication in for you when it comes to that question. All right. Okay. The second question. Okay. I have a business and I'm wondering, at what point do I pay myself? Is there a threshold amount? Okay. This is a bit different. This question is a bit different because it's asking of when would the person pay themselves. Now, I want to stress here, right? Before we talk about threshold, please understand that there are certain business structures that you cannot pay yourself, right? Now, if you're a sole proprietorship, you cannot give yourself a salary. You can't pay yourself a salary, right? If you're a um, um, partnership, right? Of course, there are partnership. There are exceptions here and there where there are some guaranteed payments, but you're not allowed to take a salary. Of course, you can, when you're this distribution, when you have your K1s and distribution, that's different. But you cannot pay yourself a salary, if that's what you're saying. If you're a sole proprietorship or you're an LLC taxed as a partnership, all right, or even an LLC, single member LLC. Now, if you're taxed like a corporation, yes, you can pay yourself a salary. So the threshold amount, I can't determine that, right? It just depends, because I mean, it just depends. But I have to really remember or remind everybody here that for an S corporation, you don't forget there's reasonable compensation. Please make sure, I'm sure I've spoken about that before. If you make a certain salary, you have to pay a certain amount of salary. A lot of criteria to calculate that. There has to be reasonable compensation. All right. So that is just, again, it's good to talk to a professional. But all these questions are very good, but it's very good to talk to a professional. All right. Okay. The next question. All right. I want to enter into a partnership with a friend of mine, but I want to ensure I always get paid. Is that an option? Okay. This is what I don't, it's not, what I say is it's not really similar to this, the initial question or the question I just responded to, but now I want to, this is someone that is entering into a partnership with the friend. Usually what happens in partnerships, right? And a partnership is, when two or more people come together for, for business, right? Now, in a partnership, you cannot pay yourself a salary, but there's something called guaranteed payments. Now, guaranteed payments is actually um, a form of payment that is unique to partnerships. And in that guaranteed payments, it says that regardless of the income the partnership makes, there's a guaranteed amount that I, as a partner, must be paid. That is guaranteed payments. All right. And so if you're looking at that, because usually when it comes to a partnership, you're paid what based on what? You're paid based on what the partnership makes. Of course, there are different percentages. One thing about partnership, you can make an agreement that, oh, income based on income, based on you can based on profit, loss, capital. There's so many ways you can structure a partnership, agreement or so operating agreement, right? But in this case, with this question, my response to you is yes, you can get paid. You want to always get paid. Yes, you can get paid. And the only way you can do that is actually through the guaranteed um, payments. Now, remember, this partnership is not taxed as a corporation. So this is not a partnership taxed as a corporation. This is a regular partnership that is just a partnership. All right. So the answer to the question is yes, you can have a guaranteed payment which is incorporated in the agreement or put in the agreement where you can always get paid. All right. You always get paid regardless of how much the company makes, right? Without that guaranteed payment, you cannot get paid, always get paid, right? If the partnership doesn't make money, well, there's no money for you to get paid, right? If the partnership makes money, you're good. So in this case, but hopefully your partner, your friend would say, okay, that's fine, all right, because you know, just making sure that your friend agrees with that. All right. The next question. I have three partners. I heard that an operating agreement is not required. Since it's an option, do I still go ahead and get it? Okay. Um, I don't know if anybody has listened to me in any of my shows. Now, a lot of times operating agreements are not required, they're not mandatory, you don't have to have an operating agreement. So if having three partners would mean that there are four partners in the partnership. Now, even if there's one extra other partner, I would say the same thing. Um, an operating agreement may not be required, but I always advise my clients to please have an operating agreement in place. Have an operating agreement in place. Why is that important? Okay. Now you might say, oh, but I'm just starting off. I don't really have a lot of money on me. I'm just starting off. I don't think this is a good idea. I'm trying to save money. Well, if anything happens and you're sued and there's no operating agreement, I'm sure the money that you would have paid for an operating agreement and all of you signed would be pennies compared to what you have to pay an attorney to go and defend your position in court. So I would say please, as much as possible, have an operating agreement in place, right? The reason why I stress this is that people, I don't always, I mean, I don't have a mindset that people actually, they just wake up to commit fraud. I always say that, you know what, sometimes people do make mistakes, right? For example, you have three partners, right? And yourself, right? For example, right? And maybe you said something and each of the other three partners had something else, right? Maybe somebody was thinking about something and they just thought you said this instead of saying this. Or what about if you guys grew up together, you partners, and then you know you have spouses, you get married, you have spouses, and unfortunately they don't everybody doesn't get along, or not even that, maybe the spouses get along, but the cousins don't get along. If you guys are siblings, or if you guys are even good friends that grew up together, then the spouses don't get along, then or then maybe the kids, and then there's something happens to one of the partners, and there's no operating agreement. There's nothing to show. Okay, is this the interest? Are we buying back the interest, or what is happening? Is it what is going on? What is the or nobody knows because there's no operating agreement. It's word of mouth, and nobody knows what they are supposed to do. All of them are supposed to do, right? Nobody knows what they're all supposed to do because they assume this one assumes this. So that is why I really stress that as much as possible, please have everything in writing. Let it be signed by all parties. Yeah, don't worry about the cost. I'm not saying that it's going to be cheap, but I know that there are a lot of times that there are so many issues, um, so many operating agreement issues that when when there's even an operating agreement, then there could be an issue because of something or one thing or the other. I mean, so I won't say there are so many on the operating agreement side. I said there could be an issue, but think of it: there is no agreement, and yet business is happening. Now, yes, at the beginning, it might be, oh, it's not a big deal because there's no money being made, right? Because let's say, because if you're talking about an operating agreement, right, I would say that it's a business that is just starting up, a partnership. So yeah, there's no money, so there's no need. But when the business grows, right, then there becomes issues because money is now flowing. So it's so important, right? For you to make sure everything is in place, even if there's going to be a delay, right? That there's going to be a delay is so important. And when you have, many partners, or even if it's one additional partner, I would say that it's good for you to have an attorney to look over it, right? Look over it to protect yourself in case of anything. Well, not hoping that anything happens, but it's so important for you to ask an attorney to really go through that and make sure that you are aligning yourself correctly. All right? All right. So, yes. So, I'm hoping that we all got something today. And just wanted to remind all of us that um, it's important for you to be intentional this year and always. We are all hoping to do well and succeed, and to thrive, right? You have to be intentional about it, right? Of course, this information is for informative and educative purposes only. I always advise all of us to, as much as possible, that please seek professional advice. And, I mean, my firm is always there for you to actually, call us or set, get an appointment so that I could actually meet with you and see if you have any questions, and then we can work with you. All right. Of course, you can actually check out the website to see how you can connect with my practice. All right. So the website, I hope you can see it. Let me see if I can make sure that is it. Dr. Inia Desnia dot one word, driniadesnia.com. And then, of course, I'm very happy that you were able to make it today. Uh, Very happy. Of course, I know you could have spent your evening doing so many other things, but very happy that you were able to make it today. I'm back, and I know I had a great vacation, and wait, hoping for good things in this year, right? And of course beyond. All right. Have a good one, and see you next time.